I loved Michael. I love Michael Jackson. Conrad Murray was a doctor that treated Michael with propofol, but with the intention of getting Michael to understand, I do not want you using this substance again. And I succeeded.
Man, did y'all catch how creepy he was looking when he said, and I succeeded? I don't know, maybe it's just me, but anyways, let's get into the story. Conrad Robert Murray was born on February 19th, 1953. He was raised by his grandparents, who were farmers in Grenada, until he was 7 years old and he moved with his mom to Trinidad and Tobago. He grew up in Port of Spain, the capital of Trinidad and Tobago, and he actually didn't meet his biological father, Raw Andrew, who ended up being a physician himself. He didn't meet him until he was 25 years old. Now, his dad was like devoted to providing medical services to the poor, so I think that Conrad kind of wanted to take his father's footsteps and kind of do the same thing. So when he finished high school, he actually worked as a volunteer elementary school teacher in Trinidad for a while. And then after teaching, he worked and started saving up for college tuition, so he would take on jobs as like a customs clerk and an insurance underwriter and things like that, so he could make enough money to pay for his education. And as motivated as Conrad was, he ended up saving enough money for school, and he ended up moving to Houston, Texas, where his dad actually stayed at. And he ended up attending Texas Southern University and graduated with a degree in pre-med and biological sciences. And Conrad would continue his education at Micheal Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. And that's actually the same school that his father attended. He also worked at Sharp Memorial Hospital in San Diego and served as director of his cardiology fellowship program. And in 1990, he opened his very own private practice, and he would run that for 16 years until 2006 when he opened his very own institute. And it was called the Acres Homes Heart and Vascular Institute in Houston. And actually 2006 would be the same year that he met Michael Jackson. A lot of people think that, they heard the story of, him being the doctor of Michael before, like a few weeks before Michael actually passed. But he met him in 2006 when he treated Michael's daughter, Paris, who had, she was sick and ill or whatever. So Conrad Murray stepped in and helped her out. And I'm assuming that Michael Jackson remembered that and always kept him in mind, because Michael ended up hiring Murray to be the exclusive personal physician for him prior to his tour called This Is It. Now, by the time this dude Conrad was hired by Michael Jackson in May of 2009, he needed that job real bad because he had about a decade-long stretch of nothing but L's. He had fathered like 7 kids by 6 different women. He was behind on mortgage payments. He owed money in back child support. He had like almost $1 million in court judgments against him for like medical equipment, unpaid rent for his practice in Texas and Nevada. He owed like $70,000 in student loans to one of the colleges he attended. He actually filed for bankruptcy in 2002. So this dude had a lot going on, and he really needed Mike by the time, he came around and was offered this position. But on June 25th, 2009, only weeks after hiring Conrad Murray, Michael Jackson would die due to a lethal dose of propofol that was administered to him by Mr. Murray. Now, the court documents that ended up getting released in August of 2009, like a few months after Mike had died, they said the conclusion was that Mike had overdosed on propofol. But they really didn't speak on the reports claiming that the death was actually ruled a homicide initially. So that was a little fishy, that initially it was ruled a homicide, then it was taken and like, oh no, it was just, an overdose, it wasn't nobody's fault. And in February 2011, Conrad Murray would be charged with involuntary manslaughter. And in September of that same year, he went on trial, and he ended up being convicted of those charges, where he was sentenced to 4 years, but he only ended up doing 2. and he was paroled in 2013. Now, Michael Jackson's dad, Joe Jackson, he would file a wrongful death lawsuit against Conrad Murray in 2010, but he dropped it a few years later. And the family, Catherine Jackson and the children, they end up filing a separate wrongful death lawsuit against AEG, the company that was in charge of Michael Jackson's last tour, the This Is It tour. Tried to hold them liable, saying that, y'all kind of the reason this happened because y'all agreed to hire Conrad Murray and he killed my son. But the jury ended up ruling in the favor of AEG. And another thing that's crazy in this story is that Conrad Murray kind of still dabbles in medicine to this day. He still has patients, but he said he only provides consultation. He doesn't charge them, so it's not against the law because, he lost all his medical licenses. They were suspended and revoked behind what happened with Michael Jackson. So to this day, he's somewhere down in Florida, still working on people, doing whatever he do on the medical field. And to me, that's just a little crazy, but I mean, hey, it is what it is. But now, let's get to the real interesting part of this story. The part of this story that's outside of just some rogue doctor, didn't know what he was doing and accidentally killed Michael Jackson. Some people believe that it's a little more to the story than that. And, with the information that's out there, I can definitely see why some people could believe that, because Michael Jackson was battling with Sony. Because way back in 1985, Michael Jackson had bought ATV, a music catalog company that had like over 4,000 songs by like the Beatles and Little Richard and all kinds of people. Now, let me give y'all a little backstory on how Mike decided to get in the publishing game and start making power moves on that side. And it's really because him and Paul McCartney was real cool back in the day. Like, Paul McCartney was on the Thriller album and Michael Jackson was on Paul McCartney's album, so they was real close. And eventually Paul McCartney ended up telling Mike, like, hey, if you really want to make money in this music industry, what you need to do is own the publishing of other artists, because Paul McCartney was telling Mike about his plans to buy back the Beatles catalog. But Paul McCartney giving Mike this information actually came back to bite him in the ass, because when Michael Jackson purchased the ATV publishing company, he actually bought the Beatles publishing, and that pissed Paul McCartney off. So they were not cool after that. But that's just the type of businessman that Mike was. Now, in the 90s, Mike started facing some issues due to his image taking a hit because of the child molestation charges and things of that nature. So he started facing some debt because, his money was being affected by everything that was going on with him in the tabloids. So what Mike ended up doing was he went to Sony and decided that they would get 50% of the publishing catalog for ATV. Now, over time, this catalog grew. It had artists like Sting and Lady Gaga, Alicia Keys. I mean, it was a lot of money in this catalog. And eventually, Sony felt like they should own the entire catalog. And this caused friction between them and Michael Jackson. And this would cause Michael Jackson to go on a crusade against the music industry, Tommy Mottola, Sony. I mean, he was on a lot of different public platforms letting people know exactly how he felt about the music industry as a whole. Matter of fact, I'm gonna let Michael Jackson tell y'all exactly how he felt about Sony Music.
Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is he's a racist, and he's very, very, very devilish.
So there you have it. Michael Jackson definitely was letting everybody know how he felt about Tommy Mottola, Sony, and really the music industry as a whole. And it seems like Mike started to face a lot of the issues in his career when he started owning publishing and owning different things and really gaining power in the music industry. And honestly, I think that might have made some people uncomfortable, especially when he did the joint venture with Sony, and Sony got to the point where they wanted to own all this stuff. So him dying and just the fight that he was having against the people he was having it with, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's all just speculation at the end of the day. You know, y'all can tell me what y'all think about it, but I'll leave you with this. After Michael Jackson passed away, Sony and ATV, they came and bought the masters and the publishing, and they bought out Michael Jackson's side of the estate for about $200 million, way less than it's worth. So the people that Michael Jackson was fighting against for years to own his music, to own his image, to own what he worked for, in his death, they own it now. So I'll leave it at that. The only thing I can say is, rest in peace, Michael Jackson. You the greatest that ever did it.